Welcome to my video on how to use the order of operations to solve math problems, also known as things you haven't thought about since high school. Alright, so let's say that you are suddenly faced with this mess of an equation. We need to know how to solve it, but there are so many different types of operations in this math problem, it can be confusing to know where to start. So we have to rely on a handy mnemonic device for figuring out this math problem. And we can remember how to solve this by using the cue, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." This isn't actually my Aunt Sally. I actually don't have an Aunt Sally, but it's a handy tool to remember how to solve these horrible looking math problems. So, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Easy phrase to remember, but what in the world does this actually mean? Well, we need to think about the first letter of each one of these words to figure out what we mean here. So, what does this stand for anyway? Well, it stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So, this is the order in which we should do any sort of mathematical operations when you're faced with an equation that you don't know how to approach. It does get a little bit more complicated though, because we also need to remember that for both multiplication and division and addition and subtraction, whenever we encounter these in an equation, we perform them from left to right. So knowing this, let's head back over to our awful looking equation. So our first step, because we see a parenthesis in this equation, we use the order of operations, and that tells us that we should perform the operation within the parentheses first. So if we do that, our equation becomes 6 squared plus 8 minus 2, which is 6, divided by 3 minus 5 times 3. So now we have solved the first part of the equation, that which was enclosed in parentheses. Next, we work on that exponent that is in the equation. So 6 squared, that becomes 36. Plus 6, we bring down the rest of the equation here. Now we are ready for the next part of our equation, which is multiply and divide. Now remember, with multiplication and division, we do them in the order in which they are from left to right. So which division or multiplication do we encounter first? In this example, it's the division. So 36 plus 6 divided by 3 is 2 minus 5 times 3. Now we're ready for the multiplication. That's at the end of the equation. So that becomes 36 plus 2 minus 5 times 3. That is 15. Now we're ready to move on to the next part of our equation, which is the final part of the order of operations, and that is addition and subtraction. And remember, once again, we do these from left to right. So our first thing we encounter is addition, so 36 plus 2 is 38 minus 15. Now we're just left with this last part of the equation. And so 38 minus 15 is 23. And that is our solution. Again, we've figured out how to solve this quite nasty looking equation using the mnemonic device, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally," which stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And for those last two sets, remember, we use them from left to right. So hopefully that will help you in your college classes, being reminded about those things that you haven't used since high school.